Hi everyone, welcome to the WLSR talk show. I'm Anjali Kumar, and today I'm joined by Dr. Balcom, one of the school counselors at Lawrenceville. And for today's episode, we are going to talk about human connection and communication during the pandemic and how that has impacted mental health. So to start off, I noticed that I really rely on my friends to kind of keep me going throughout the school year, and that plays a big role into my mental health, and I know a lot of other students feel the same way. So it's definitely been a big change being at home and not being able to see them as much. So I just wanted to ask, like, how has COVID-19 generally affected people's mental health?
So first, I want to say thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be talking about this. It's obviously a really important topic to be addressed right now. So thank you so much. In thinking about how COVID-19 has affected people's mental health, my first thought was, well, how hasn't it affected people's mental health? The impact has been so sudden and so great on everyone, and it's disrupted everyone's life without a doubt, in both similar ways and in dissimilar ways. And it was sudden and it was drastic. So I think we would be hard pressed to find anyone who says that they're not affected by it. The main thing that I've seen people struggling with, and I think people are struggling with, is this sense of anxiety. Anxiety about almost everything, on a basic level, anxiety about catching the virus, anxiety about the family members catching up the virus. But I think also anxiety about not knowing what's going to happen, and anxiety about, will this end anytime soon? And so I think that has been really hard. The disruption to everyone's life has been really hard. It's disrupted our routines, our connections to others, which I know we're going to talk about more in a bit. It's disrupted people's dreams and hopes and their plans. And it's been really, really hard. Anxiety, for some, they were already predisposed to anxiety. And for others, they're feeling new anxiety. But anxiety has been extremely high during this, as has depression. Some people are really depressed by the loss of loved ones, of course, the loss of significant events, the loss of structure and routine, of physical connections. And so it's been really, really hard, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, I definitely think like the uncertainty has also been like such a big issue in a lot of people's lives, like just not knowing, even in a couple months, like what's school going to be like, or am I going to have all of these events that I was really looking forward to, like especially for seniors as a senior. So that's definitely like been a big thing, like a loss for a lot of people. So another question that I wanted to ask is, how has the change in communication specifically during the pandemic been taxing for the mind and body? So this kind of leads into another question of, why is physical communication so different from virtual communication? And is there like a psychological reason for why we feel that difference and kind of feel a disconnect even when we're virtually with people, but it still doesn't feel the same as being there physically?
Of course. I think that, truly we lose out on a lot when we are communicating virtually. I on the one hand, it's a blessing that we have virtual communication. If we think about, years ago, this wouldn't have been possible, and how much more difficult that would have been, not to be able to communicate, seeing someone. So it is great that we can see one another, and yet we lose out a lot. I know for me, physical contact is really important. Not that I go around touching anyone all the time, but the little things, the gentle touch on the shoulder, the playful slap on the back when you're laughing, those things add so much to our communication with one another. Even family members. So as the pandemic has gone on, I believe at first everyone was really staying away from one another. But as it has gone on, we're seeing more and more of our family members, but at a social distance. And how hard is that? I've seen family members and you kind of look at them oddly. Normally it would be a natural hug. And now it's
Mm-hmm. Having to be like having to have that distance, just want to like run to them and hug them. That's definitely like so hard. Mm-hmm.
right. And there's this question of how close can I get?
Mm-hmm.
And that, that's a huge loss, our ability to communicate. I also think that in communicating virtually, we don't get to see the whole person. Now, there's some pros to that because, you don't have to present your whole
Yeah,
self. But
pajamas all the time.
we certainly lose out on a lot. We are whole human beings, and so being able to see one's entire body and their movement, and hand gestures, that's all important to communication. And I think that's why it can be difficult to communicate virtually versus physically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think another part of it for me is definitely just like, I think getting ready to go out and talk to people. Like I will put together a nice outfit and like get all presentable, and that just like puts me in a different mood. Like I really like to just like get all dressed up and look nice, and I definitely like I've been trying to do that a little more at home, but it feels kind of like odd when all you have to like present to is like your neighbor and their dogs. So yeah, that's definitely like a hard part of it. But I think I think that just the like getting ready to go out and see people aspect has like been a big change in my life. And I think it's just been making me feel a little more like tired and unmotivated at times, it can seem. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. When you get dressed up, when you present yourself to someone, it changes the way you feel about the interaction, the way you feel within the interaction. That's why, I do think that it's a good idea to get up, to make sure that you take a shower, to make sure that you brush your teeth, which are things that a lot of people haven't been doing sometimes because it's virtual communication. But those things are important because it's not just about the way that you look to someone, it's about the way that it makes you feel to get up, to get dressed, to brush your teeth, to engage in self-care, and to be ready for your interaction.
There's also the question of, has this virtual communication had any positive impact on our mental health in any way? And has it, positively impacted us?
Certainly, I think some people are more comfortable with virtual communication. Some people have been doing it all along, and it's kind of natural for them. And so I think it's been helpful in some ways to them to be able to communicate on a platform that they feel more comfortable with. I think also for some people who struggle with social anxiety, the virtual communication has relieved a lot of the anxiety that they have about, face-to-face communication. And so for that reason, it's been beneficial. Virtual communication also is interesting because it allows people to see the humanity of one another. I know there are times when I've been counseling someone via Zoom or Doxy, and my kids will come running in. And I am horrified. But there's something, although I'm horrified, the person that I'm talking to usually seem relieved, because I think there's something about that shared humanity to let people know, you know what, I'm a human being. I have disruptions in life. I have connection problems. Sometimes the internet goes out, but I think those things help us to see that we're all human and that we all have the same struggle.
Unites us a lot more. That's,
Right.
for sure. Okay, so I think that kind of leads into the next question of some tips for people to stay mentally healthy during this time. So what are some ways that people can keep up with their mental health during this time when socialization and like seeing friends is usually a really big part of that?
It's been tough. I think for a lot of people, because another thing that was disrupted was a lot of our coping skills. Generally I say stuff like, go out, take a walk, interact with others, go out, have a good time. And a lot of those things I've realized we can't do, but there are still many things that people can do, and I hope that they're doing to cope. Um, the social interaction is extremely important. So keeping that up, even if it must be virtually, even if it must be at a distance, our connection to others as human beings is extremely important. I think in the beginning of this pandemic, a lot of people saw it as a break from others.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I could just relax a little bit and I don't have to engage, because communication and interaction can be taxing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was a break at first, but as time has went on, we've noticed how much we miss that interaction. And so it is important to engage with others.
Yeah.
Utilizing online platforms, if possible, getting out at social distancing. Using social distancing is really important.
Yeah.
Self-care is extremely important during this time. So, like I said, getting up, taking your showers, the basic self-care, doing your hair, nails, getting haircuts or doing haircuts yourself if possible. Um, Exercise.
Yeah, that's definitely like such a big thing. And especially with like extracurriculars being, I don't know, kind of up in the air right now. I don't know what's totally going on with them, but just like I feel like sports and exercise is generally such like a part of a lot of people's routine, and
Mhm.
being in has like definitely impacted that, just with like not being able to go to the gym. So, like some people are doing some at home workouts, but yeah, exercise is definitely like always something that I know can just really aid with mental health. And so I guess it's a definitely a big part of like keeping that in your schedule to stay mentally healthy.
Certainly. And it's interesting, you mentioned schedule, but that's important too.
Mhm.
Clearly, our schedules have been turned completely upside down, but it's really important to have a routine, especially as we are heading back into school. It's important to get back into your routine, get back onto your sleep cycle, eating at a regular time, having some kind of routine is important also, because otherwise some people end up staying in the bed all day,
Yeah.
feeling like there's nothing to do. But getting up and actually doing something, this is a really good time to try new things. There are a lot of coping skills that people can try that we just normally think of as, I don't want to do that. That's going to be pretty boring.
Mhm.
But now, when we have so much time on our hands and are able to do so, get out, try something new, fly a kite, start a garden, start a new hobby. The worst that can happen is you don't enjoy it. The best that
Yeah.
can happen is that you find something new that really helps you.
Hmm. Right.
That's
I feel like I personally like have been in the kitchen a lot more, and like baking and cooking I found is like so relaxing for me. My
Mhm.
like mom and my whole family has always like really been like they're great cooks and everything, but I never really had like too much of an opportunity to explore that. So it's definitely been nice, and I find that just like the other day, I was baking like some oh there were pumpkin muffies, like the tops of muffins, and
Uh-huh.
just put on like some like nice music, and it was like really nice for just that time to be like alone with myself. So yeah, I definitely think that new hobbies is like a great thing to be doing this during this time, especially like exploring new things.
Of
Um,
course. Oh,
yeah.
and before we go to the next question, mindset is really important during this time too. When you can start to feel hopeless and feel like this is never going to end, just remember how resilient we as human beings are. We are built to get through difficult times. This isn't going to last forever, even though it's lasting a really long time. This isn't going to last forever, and I think it's important to remind ourselves each day that we're going to get through this, that things are going to get better.
Yeah, it can definitely seem like so bleak sometimes, and there it feels like there's like nothing left, but that is like so important to just remember. And I guess something else that I I have been like noticing myself do a little more, I guess, is just celebrating like the smaller wins, like making my bed and things like that. So I don't know, like when before we would have been celebrating or like things to look forward to before we're like, I don't know, going to like a nice party with friends or going out to brunch. It's like
Mhm.
recently just been like smaller things like helping my mom water the garden. Like I'm looking forward to that every week and things like that. So yeah,
Of
just
course.
smaller things for sure.
I think it's great that you're doing that, and there's something to be said for counting your blessings, which is another great coping skill at this time. A lot of people struggle with that, but in doing so, they tend to invalidate the pain that goes along with what they're going through. But it is possible and necessary to acknowledge that this is very difficult and, we don't like this. And at the same time, there are small wins,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
There are things that we do each day that can help to lift us up. There are things that we are really grateful for. And at this time, I think it's important to keep that in mind without invalidating the pain of our experience as well.
Yeah. I think that kind of ties into just like practicing gratitude is like so important and just moving forward and I guess for staying healthy and everything. Okay, and the last question I had is a little more Lawrenceville specific. So we have at Lawrenceville, I know that seeing friends is such a big and integral part of the experience. So would you have any tips for students in the fall to kind of navigate this new normal? And what are some resources that they could possibly utilize to stay mentally healthy?
Of course, of course. We don't know how school is going to be when we go back. We do know that the administration has been working extremely hard to make sure that people are safe. And I think that in sacrificing some of our connections with others during this time, it's important to keep in mind the importance of doing so for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Lawrenceville is based on doing what's best for all. And um, when you guys start feeling down about not being able to see your friends as much as you used to or in person, it's important to keep that in mind that you're doing what's best for you, what's best for them, what's best for your futures. And so hopefully that can help ease some of the pain a little bit. And again, knowing that this is not going to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, keeping up with social connection is going to be important. And if opportunity avails itself, definitely meeting up at utilizing social distance. Another resource, obviously, is the counseling center. As counselors, we are available at all times during the school year for counseling. There are 4 of us in the counseling center. You have Dr. Jonathan Geller, Dr. Stephanie Bunin, and head of counseling, Dr. D. Apple. A lot of people have talked about difficulty in knowing how to find us, how to connect to us. And that may be even more pronounced because we may not be on campus all of the time, but you can still go directly to the Health and Wellness Center and let them know you want to talk to a counselor. We recently started a page so that people can go there and get information about us and about our services and about how to connect with us. You can feel free to email directly. You can email Dr. D. Apple. You can email one of the counselors directly. But it's important to know that counseling services are still available. It's important to know that if you don't feel comfortable coming to the counseling center on campus, that a lot of local providers are um, having more availability now because most counseling is done via telehealth. And so if you feel you need that extra support, then definitely that's a resource to use. But I would say definitely rely on your coping skills, rely on one another, rely on the staff and faculty as well.
Right. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you so much, Dr. Balcom, for being here. Your advice and input was really invaluable, so thank you so much. Make sure to try and keep to your routines, try and get as socially connected as possible while being distant, even virtually. And most importantly, remember that we will get through this and have hope. I promise we'll get through this. Thank you so much.
Certainly. You summed it up really well, Anjali. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, everyone.